What is up? Welcome back, gamers. My name is Brian. Thank you for watching me. This is Game Brigade, and today we are going to be taking a look at Earth Under Siege. There's a new reprint campaign coming to Gamefound, and I thought this would be the perfect opportunity to kind of talk about this game and giving you the mechanics that I both like and don't like. That way you can make a decision about this game might be for you, especially if you're looking for something that fits this kind of genre, this stealth action, dungeon crawling like crawler. So what we're going to do is I'm going to kind of go over the basic mechanics of what you're looking at here. That way you guys have a good understanding of what I'm talking about as I explain each of the things in this system that I like or didn't like. So first off, you're going to look here at the board. This board is a modular board. You'll be creating these systems based off of the campaign map. Now, this is a campaign-based game for the most part. There are single-shot scenarios that you are able to play, but for the most part, the way you are truly going to get the most out of this game is through the campaign. On the board, there are going to be a lot of different tokens or icons that you're going to be making yourself aware of. These green blips, and there could be green, they could be yellow, they could be red, are the indicators for where enemies are. Now, in this game, you are a special operations human defense force. You are trying to save humanity from an alien invasion. These aliens are currently invading Earth. They are even using humans against us as part of their operation, and we're going to be infiltrating different types of their facilities to complete some sort of a mission objective or whatever. This mission, we're trying to get some intel, which is going to be down here, and then we need to defeat the war leader who's in his office before we extract. So that's technically what this mission objective would be. So these green dots, though, are the enemies that we know are in the facility. We just don't know who they are. We know that we are most likely going to run into these types of enemies. This is called the enemy dashboard. It has all the types of enemies that we could see spawned in this mission. When we gain visual of one of these alien or one of these blips, we will then spawn it by drawing a card from the spawn deck. And we'll look at the art and see which of those arts correspond to what we have in the pool. In this case, it is the Vormont Grunts. And then you'll have a spawn ability. Every card has a different type of spawn ability. You will do the spawn ability, taking either the positive or negative effect from that and continuing on. From there, you also have some locked doors. We have some technicians. These are people that are manning the cameras. They have their own special rules. There's a card here that declares what a technician is and what happens when you encounter them. But they also are manning the cameras. So if we were able to neutralize these technicians, these cameras will go offline and they're not going to have a use. So there's different ways that you can kind of approach it. Now, we know we need to get down here. We know we need to eliminate this boss and we need to get out. How you choose to do it is up to you. And then these are also weapon loot. It's kind of like a weapons locker. If we get down there and we loot it, we can get some additional new gear that can potentially upgrade our current systems. Down here, we have the player dashboard. This game is an action economy game on top of the stealth and action-oriented system. And you're going to be utilizing a combination of your actions as well as your asymmetrical card deck that you're going to have access to. Each turn, you're going to draw up to your hand limit, which is 5 cards, unless there's a game mechanic that says otherwise. And these cards are going to have different types of abilities that you can perform. Some of them are free actions, some of them are responses, and you will basically read the card and do the ability. So, for example, if I wanted to play a card, say as right in the face, if we look at the anatomy, this is a attack. So we're going to be using this card to perform an attack. And it says play before making a non-area effect attack to gain an additional white dice and an accuracy. So from there, obviously, we see that this is a dice rolling game. You're going to be rolling 3 different types of dice. You've got the red dice, the white dice, and then there is a black dice, which will assist us in getting additional resource tokens. Because of it's a dice, you have to be rolling some sort of amount of dice. Each character on your dashboard has a native ability of what they're good at or not very good at. Marisa Vasquez is who I'm playing as. She's a soldier. She rolls 3 white dice when I'm dealing combat. I roll 3 white dice when I'm defending. I have 1 white dice when I'm doing any sort of science or technology, and 3 white dice when I'm doing a stealth check. Each of these will be referenced based on your actions in the game when you're when you're dealing with an opponent through a stealth check or dealing combat, you'll be referencing your sheet here, any cards you've played, and any equipment you have to modify those dice. So if I were to do an attack, I would first generate my pool of 3 dice. By playing this card, I get an additional dice. I can also utilize my weapon by getting another white dice, and this will also be adding a black dice, which I can then use to get an additional token. You will then roll your dice, and you will count how many successes you have, corresponding to what your opponent's armor value is, and then you'll take a look at how much health they have, and you'll deal damage equal to the amount of health or units they have in that spawn thing. So that is the idea. You roll the dice. Do I meet the check? I do the thing. Also, these cards are two-sided, so there's a top, bottom, and a bottom portion. In the very middle, there's an icon that references your tokens that you have available to your characters, these focus tokens. If I discard a matching token from my pool, I can do the bottom portion of that card as well as the top portion. So it's like an additional effect. By doing this, you get an additional effect. That is the core system of what the players are going to do. You're going to be playing your cards, rolling your dice. That is the gameplay loop. But how does that wrap into the actual gameplay? Now, as I mentioned, this is a stealth mechanic. So the first thing I want to talk about is the stealth versus the action and how that all corresponds into the gameplay loop. So as players are going to be moving into the facility, you have multiple ways that you can attempt to complete the objective. Obviously, one of the first things most players do is they want to try to complete it stealthily. There's a few things you can do. You can do careful movements that give you additional rolls in a stealth check. You will use those by using your actions. You have 6 available actions to you each turn, but each round you only refresh up to 3 of those potential actions. You have to play around and understand when do you want to utilize all your actions and when do you want to save actions for an additional turn. So let's say I did a careful move, and so I'm going to move my Marisa Vasquez here by spending a careful move, which a normal move is 2 movement steps, basically 2 of these areas. A careful move is a 1 movement, but if I do that and I'm doing any sort of stealth check, I'll add a red dice to my stealth pool, and Marisa Vasquez's her stealth pool is 3. So that would be what I'd look at here. Because we have line of sight to a blip, we will now spawn that blip. We already flipped that card. It was the grunts. So we will spawn the grunts. According to the spawn card here, the dashboard, we will spawn 3 grunts. So we'll place... Sorry about that, boys. We'll spawn 3 grunts in the area, and we know that they have a sight of 2, a movement of 2, armor of 4. So the armor of 4 means that's the check we have to do to successfully complete an attack against them. And each one of their models has 1 health. Okay, which means you have to deal with more than 1 damage to kill all 3. And then they have the ability, a dishonorable kill as a team. So as a collective unit, operatives must discard focus tokens equal to our threat level, which is located up here. The threat level is basically how many players are in the game. Right now we have a 2-player game, so our threat level is 2. So we'd have to discard 2 tokens. At the start of the game, we each start with 2 tokens. So each of us would probably just discard 1. Now, let's continue with the stealth check. I can check my hand and see, is there anything that I see that might help me with a stealth? There's nothing in my hand. We're just going to roll it. Now, the perception level of the players, the way you're going to perform a stealth check is you'll reference the perception. The perception of the grunts is pretty low. It's 2. We also have an additional effect in play right now, which is called Black Ops, which means we've cut the power, which means reduce the perception of all enemies by 2. So you would think, well, they have a perception of 2, minus 2, that's 0. They shouldn't be able to see me. I'm good. But we also have at the end of the hallway a camera. A camera can see basically infinite, as long as there's no doorways or anything obstructing them, all the way through. So the camera can technically see me, and the camera's sight is 4. Whoever has the highest perception among people that can see you in their line of sight is the number you'll go with. So technically it's 4 minus 2, which is 2, which means I have to roll 2 successes to succeed this stealth check, and in this situation I roll 3. So we are continuing our stealth movements, which means these guys are not aware. You'll notice I didn't remove the green blip. That green blip will not come off until we have removed that unit. And if they were to become aware of us, it would flip to a yellow one. In a different situation. The differences between the green and the yellow, the green blips are stationary opponents. Those are guards that are standing at their post. They're not going to be moving. While the yellow blips are actually going to be doing a patrol, and they patrol 2 movement at a time. And their patrol movements will basically try to get to our insertion point or get to an investigation token, which they are going to investigate. And once they reach these tokens will go to the escalation track, and if they've if the patrols have discovered enough of these, things get bad to the point where they'll eventually call an alarm. So in this situation, we did our stealth check, we did our movement. I'm going to play another card from my hand, which is perform a move action. So we're just going to move like this, and we perform that action. So now we could go to our other character in this situation. It's Olivia Mad Dog Moss. She can move, but she doesn't have quite as good a stealth, so she's also going to do that careful move. And you're just going to continue the game on this loop. Now that is effectively how the check system works. You can use that check system with all the different types of checks you can occur into. You've got the door hacking checks, you've got the combat checks, you've got the defense roll checks when they're attacking you. They're all going to basically use the same gameplay loop of referencing your player cards versus the type of gear you have, because these can modify your rolls. They can modify your equipment or already different types of equipment available, as well as utilizing your cards in your hand. What I like about this system is it gives players the ability to look at the board and kind of make situations on the fly of what do we want to do and how do we want to accomplish this. I've played this specific scenario 3 times, and I've done it in multiple ways. I've gone it as stealthy twice, and the 3rd time more of a run and gun, let's go in guns blazing. Of course, I had a more combat-oriented setup when I went into that one, but I wanted to see what happens if we just go in there and kind of brute force it. And it is possible both ways. Again, the players will have to make the decisions based on how their playstyle is and what best fits you. From there, though, I think the best thing to talk about would be next, what is the best experience for this game? The campaign book and the campaign version of the game is probably the preferred or best way to experience this game. So if you're not necessarily looking for a campaign experience, I'm not sure if this would be one I would recommend, but note there are ways that you can play every single one of these missions that are in the game as a single shot experience. Effectively, when you go to a mission, it'll tell you what the assault level is. So you're going to basically have a certain level for your HQ and what your objectives are and kind of what setup you'll need to make it so that your characters are in line with the difficulty of the specific scenario. But what the campaign provides in here that you're going to be going through is a branching narrative story. Now, I haven't finished the campaign. I've only played about till mission 7, so be aware of that. But I've gotten a good enough experience depth of what I've seen in here to get an idea of what I think could be going forward and what makes me the most excited for this game. What's super cool about this campaign is the way that you can kind of start customizing your characters as you play and kind of making them really your own. Each time you're leveling up, you're getting the ability to potentially add more cards to your deck, potentially getting new gear, getting additional equipment by your choices in your base, your strategic base upgrades. All of those things kind of flesh the game out to be kind of unique to yourself, which is super cool. I like that quite a bit. Now, I do think, as I said, the campaign storyline is the best way to enjoy it. And in terms of replayability, there is replayability options in here. The way they perform the replayability is that most of these missions, when you reach the objective, when you reach the mission you're going to reach to be at, whatever, there's going to be multiple paths that you can choose from based on what you've seen. So do you want to go and rescue the hostages, or do you want to go get the weapons cache? which one is more important to you, and whatever one you choose is going to have a reward based on the completion of that objective, but whatever you choose also is going to have a consequence for not doing this one. Because you went for the weapons cache, you're going to get additional Xenon weapons to add to your pool, but because you didn't rescue the hostages, they're now going to have additional intel on your forces, so the next scenario you might have a negative condition applied to your gameplay. I like that there's that kind of play, and so the group as a whole can make those decisions of what is the best way for us to approach these missions and how do we want to play it. Now, alternatively, when you replay the mission, you can just run the second path. You know, you can do A side and B side. How do you want to play it? How does it change the gameplay experience? Those are things for you to find out. There's also Spec Ops missions for you to play around with, a little shorter missions. Don't take as much time, but allow you to get some additional rewards and whatnot. So that is the campaign experience. I think that is truly probably the best way this game shines, getting to really build out your character, getting your cards added to your pool. You have a whole bunch of cards ranging from level 1, 2, and 3. You have your starter cards. And you know, the level 1 cards, they are very similar to what you have in your starter deck with some variations. But as you get to level 2 and 3, you start to seeing really the identity of your character shine, and kind of how do you want to customize your character? Do you want to make them a one-shot, you know, cannon, or do you want to make them an AoE death ball? Like, how do you want to play this character and what best fits your playstyle? I like that a lot. And I like that each character is really kind of fleshed out into their own kind of, you know, class. I also was very impressed when I was playing the campaign at the variety of the missions, the use of the tiles, and the way that things felt pretty variable in the decisions and the things that we saw. I will say, though, that overall, I didn't see much differences in challenge in terms of, I didn't really feel like there was ever a threat that we were ever going to lose a mission or that I was going to fail the mission. For the most part, that you see the mission and it'll be very daunting, like, oh man, how are we going to complete this objective? But as you play, I never really truly felt a threat. And I wondered how that will feel. Again, I only played about halfway through the campaign, so I always wonder, you know, what is it like when you're starting to face some of these big bad boys? Because some of these elites really hit hard. So that's something I wanted to say. But overall, the feeling of the missions, the feeling of the design were unique and were pretty fun, and I enjoyed that they had that unique taste through the campaign experience. The next thing I want to talk about, of course, with any game is the ease of play. Because this game has a mixed reaction for me on ease of play. First off, the game in terms of its mechanics is pretty simple to understand. And if you have someone who is a very versed person with this game, you can run a group pretty easily because you can manage the game well. But there are a lot of rules and a lot of overhead and a lot of things you need to know with this game, as well as just the fiddliness of all the tokens and things you have to keep track of. So let's talk about that. First off, the basic rules of the game for me to explain to someone to be able to play the game is you have 6 actions. You will slide an action to your exhausted side to take the action. You do one of a few things based on your easy reminder card here. They're pretty easy in what you're going to do, and you do the thing. At the end of the turn, after we're done using our cards and whatnot, you're only going to get 3 of those actions back. So if you spent 4 of them to do different actions, you're only going to refresh 3 of those actions. That is pretty much all you would need to explain to someone to really understand the game. Obviously the dice rolling, the checks, but that stuff's all pretty simple. But what ends up happening is you'll run into weird niche situations, especially when it's dealing with the differences between a startled enemy and an aware enemy and the escalation track. There begins a stacking of weighted difficulty on it. And the rule book is 50 pages. It's dense, so there's a lot of reading, but it answers every question you may have. So if you do have a specific question that's kind of this niche-y little thing, there's an answer of how to handle the situation in the rulebook. So I give them props for that. But what is hard is because there's so many little things, you have to make sure you really know the system. How does it handle in this specific situation? Oh, I've got an enemy that can actually see these opponents. How does that respond with the escalation track? There's a lot of little things. Also, the game has a ton of tokens. an absolute ton. And it makes the setup and teardown of this game daunting and not enjoyable. And it makes it so this one has been harder for me to table, especially when I need to put it away and bring it back. The solution to the token problem are bags. And you can see I have right now the tokens available to me that I need to play, to kind of get through. But there's so many more tokens, and the insert doesn't really solve that problem of how you want to do it. So you just kind of have to baggy them, and you put them into a big old well, and that's it. So that is a deterrent for me. Does it kill the game? No. But there's a lot of tokens, there's a lot of stuff to be in charge of, and I think it definitely requires whoever is going to be the owner of this game, whoever's going to be the one that's going to keep this in their collection. There's a rewarding experience here, but for you to have a great enjoyment of the time, you need to make sure you are very well versed in all the nuances of the rules and all the things that can occur. And make sure you understand. I would have a good system for your tokens. What tokens are you going to need for every game? I would have tokens for my characters and tokens that you might not need because they're niche. Because if you're doing what we did in the beginning, you just pulled every bag you open and dumped everything out, it's a freaking mess and gets everywhere. But I don't want to, like I said, I don't think that's a huge problem, but I want to make sure people are aware of that because it is an issue. And I do think the teardown is enough. Now, we had people in the game group that was directly turned off because of the way the game took for setting it up and tearing down. So those are things I want to make sure I bring out. But overall, Earth Under Siege was really a surprising delight. I've played a lot of dungeon crawlers over the years. I've had a lot of experience with these tile games where you're moving miniatures across the board. And for the most part, you play those games when you see an enemy, you just go kill the enemy. You don't actually have to think about what other options do we have? Do we want to sneak down here and deal with this enemy first and then try to get over here and get some more gear? Whatever it may be. And by doing that, are these patrols going to start causing effects? Sometimes some of your weapons also have sound. So if I make a noise here, these guys can become aware and I have to place a sound note token here and it's going to start making people react to those situations. So I really enjoy the way the game offers a different element of the gameplay. Now, I haven't played any of the additional content. I just have the base game, but I do believe they just add a lot more missions and whatnot. I'm excited to see what the Reprint is offering. I believe they have another expansion to bring forward. And it'll be worth checking out to see what is this adding on top of this already very complete package. The miniatures are great quality. The components are great quality. The gameplay is very solid. It's got kind of a fiddly little system here with the tokens and a lot of dense rules. But overall, I was very, very impressed with this game, and I think it's one for you to check out. Hopefully this video gave you guys some insight into Earth Under Siege. I'd like to know in the comment section down below. Leave a comment, let me know what you think, and I would love to hear your thoughts. So anyways, my name is Brian. This is Game Brigade. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you very soon.